There are men who walk through life completely unaware of the effect they have. They don't lift weights at the gym, they don't post posed photos on social media, and they don't dress like models. But when they walk into a room, women's eyes naturally turn toward them. They don't seek it, they don't force it, they simply radiate it. And here lies the great paradox. Many of the most attractive men in the world have no idea that they are. They think attraction is about looks, muscles, or expensive clothes, when in truth, real masculine magnetism happens on another level, the psychological one. That silent force that makes a woman think about you without knowing why, that makes her body react before her mind can explain it, that makes her feel something she can't quite define. Over the years, I've seen many good men sabotage themselves by trying to be noticed only for their appearance, without realizing that feminine attraction begins with how you make her feel. It's not about what you say, it's about what you communicate when you say nothing at all. It's your energy, your calmness, your gaze, your rhythm. Women don't fall in love with a face, they fall in love with the frame that holds it. And when that mental frame is solid, when your presence projects confidence, purpose, and direction, attraction happens effortlessly. In this video, I'm going to show you the clearest signs that you're far more attractive than you think, the behaviors and attitudes that spark genuine desire without you even realizing it. If this is your first time here, my name is Celia, and I've spent years helping men understand female psychology from a conscious and mature perspective. I invite you to stay, to look beyond the surface, and discover the true language of masculine attraction. Stay until the end, because you'll not only learn to recognize your value, but also how to use it to create real and lasting connections. Let's begin. Most men were taught to believe that female attraction begins with the physical, as if the body was some kind of magic key that opens every door. But the truth runs much deeper. Yes, women can be visually struck by a man, but what truly attracts them is triggered on a psychological level. It's that something they can't quite name, but sense in the way you walk, speak, look, or remain silent without losing your center. This invisible attraction happens when your energy communicates confidence without arrogance, calmness without passivity, and interest without neediness. What's curious is that many attractive men don't even realize it, because they're not trying to please anyone, they're simply being their best, most authentic selves. Physical appearance is only the surface of a much deeper presence. A woman may notice that you're good-looking, but what keeps her near you is how she feels when you're in front of her. At that point, your cologne, your clothes, or your neatly groomed beard stop being what matters most. What draws her in is the sense of balance you radiate, the feeling that you don't need to prove anything because you already know who you are. The attraction you can't see has more to do with your energy than with your features. It's your emotional coherence that sparks interest, not the size of your muscles. When a woman senses that kind of stability, something in her body reacts. It's not just desire, it's curiosity, calmness, and longing, all blended into one feeling. She perceives it as a different kind of vibe. It's the kind of man who doesn't have to raise his voice to be heard, who doesn't seek attention but gets it anyway. It's quiet confidence, silent magnetism. And that's not built in a gym, it's built in your mind. It forms when you learn to feel comfortable with yourself without needing anyone's approval. Many men feel invisible because they're putting effort into the wrong things. They try to stand out with words, appearances, or poses that don't feel natural, without realizing that what's most attractive is authenticity. Women aren't looking for perfection, they're looking for presence. They want someone who can hold himself emotionally, who doesn't crumble under tension or uncertainty. And that can only happen when you've made peace with your own imperfections. Real attractiveness, then, isn't a mask. It's the result of having made peace with your shadows, of having learned to listen to yourself and truly know who you are. When you do that, the energy you project changes, and the world around you feels it, even if you don't intend it. That's why some men who don't fit traditional beauty standards are still irresistible. They radiate calm masculinity, a blend of strength and serenity that breaks through any preconception. At this point, understanding invisible attraction means realizing that your power doesn't lie in being liked by everyone. It lies in awakening something different in those who notice you. It's that feeling of, I don't know what it is, but he draws me in. When you reach that level of naturalness, attraction stops being an effort and becomes a byproduct. Because it's not about chasing validation, it's about letting your presence speak for itself. And once you reach that point, when you start feeling that you don't have to do anything extraordinary to create interest, you'll know that the attraction you can't see was already within you. You just had to recognize it. Now that we understand where it truly comes from, let's move on to how women perceive these subtle signals without you saying a single word. Women perceive far more than what a man says. Before you even speak, they've already read your energy, your posture, your tone, and the way you occupy space. It's not magic, it's sensitivity. Their brains are wired to detect micro-expressions, inconsistencies, and emotional nuances that yours might not even notice. That's why you can say all the right things and still not create attraction, or say almost nothing and spark her interest. It all depends on the invisible language you communicate. This language isn't spoken, it's projected. It's the sum of your body language, your breathing, your gaze, your pauses, and above all, your inner coherence. When a man feels insecure, his body gives him away. His shoulders tense up, his voice wavers, his movements become clumsy or exaggerated. But when he's at peace, his body relaxes, his tone becomes steady but calm, and his eyes convey stability. That difference can't be faked. Women's minds detect it instantly. A woman doesn't look for perfection or performance. She looks for congruence. She wants what she sees to match what she feels. If your words say one thing, but your body says another, she won't believe you, even if she can't explain why. We've already seen that real attraction happens on a psychological level. But for that attraction to activate, your invisible language has to support your energy. If your body says, I'm comfortable with myself, she feels it. If your voice conveys calmness and clarity, you transmit trust. If your gaze is direct, without anxiety or need, she feels safe with you. Not because she sees you as perfect, but because she senses that your center doesn't depend on her reaction. That's what attracts her most, a man who doesn't seek validation through her. This silent language also shows up in timing. Men who speak too fast, laugh excessively, or rush to fill silences usually do it out of nervousness. In contrast, a man who breathes, pauses, and gives space to his words demonstrates inner control. Pauses create presence. They give the sense that you're truly there, that you don't need to chase her attention. And that calmness is deeply attractive because it invites trust. Most women don't remember everything you said, but they do remember how they felt around you. That's why real attractiveness isn't in your words. It's in the feeling you leave behind. If, when she's near you, her breathing changes, if she feels she can relax and stop pretending, you're communicating something no speech can convey, emotional security. That's what truly draws them in, far more than compliments or learned techniques. Subtle gestures, like holding eye contact without challenge, listening without interrupting, or keeping an open posture, are clear signs of self-mastery. You don't need to fill the air with words because your presence already speaks for you. And when your presence communicates effortlessly, a woman feels she can lower her guard. That moment when she stops analyzing you and simply feels good around you, that's when attraction takes root. Invisible language, then, isn't a tactic you learn. It's a reflection of your inner balance. The more aligned you are with yourself, the more authentic your nonverbal communication becomes. There's no way to fake that. What matters is working on your calmness, your self-esteem, and the harmony between your mind and your body. Because once those two align, your very presence says everything you need. When you understand this code, you realize it's not about saying the right thing, it's about being the right thing. Your voice, your gaze, and your energy stop asking and start offering. And that's where true magnetism begins. Now that we understand how the body speaks without words, let's move on to the most powerful trait of all, the confidence that hypnotizes. There's something about a confident man that can't be copied or imitated. It's not a pose or an attitude practiced in front of a mirror. It's an inner stillness, a calm you can feel. That confidence doesn't show in a loud voice or a puffed-up chest, but in the serenity with which he moves, in how he handles silence without discomfort, and in how he holds eye contact without turning it into a challenge. Women sense it instantly because their bodies respond to yours. When you're calm, she can relax too. That combination of peace and strength is perhaps the greatest aphrodisiac there is. When a man radiates confidence, everything he does becomes more attractive. It doesn't matter whether he's wearing a simple shirt or a tailored suit, driving an expensive car or walking on foot. What attracts isn't the things around him, it's the energy he emits. His environment responds to his presence because he's not trying to please, he's simply at ease with himself. That subtle difference changes everything. The man who seeks approval acts to please, and his energy feels forced. The man who validates himself acts from enjoyment, and it shows. His smile is more relaxed, his body language freer, and his voice warmer. We already know that female attraction is triggered more by psychology than by looks, and emotional confidence is at the core of that attraction. When a woman senses that a man doesn't get rattled by uncertainty, that he can sustain the rhythm of a conversation and isn't anxious about silence, her mind registers him as stable, capable, and trustworthy. That emotional steadiness awakens a deep, instinctive desire in her, because it tells her she can let go without feeling like she's with someone who needs her validation. Don't confuse confidence with arrogance. Arrogance needs to prove itself. Confidence simply is. The arrogant man talks about himself to impress. The confident one doesn't need to convince anyone. His worth isn't measured by how many admire him, but by how deeply he respects himself, and it shows in everything he does. A confident man doesn't fear rejection because he doesn't see it as a loss. It's simply natural selection. When someone doesn't choose him, he understands it as a matter of compatibility. That mindset makes him not only free, but incredibly attractive. A clear example is how he reacts to provocation. The insecure man feels the need to defend himself or prove he's right. The confident one, however, doesn't play that game. He knows his value doesn't depend on winning an argument. That ability to maintain his frame, to stay calm even when tested, creates a silent kind of respect that easily turns into desire. Not because of what he says, but because of what he projects. The magnetism of a confident man lies in his comfort with being himself. He doesn't alter his essence to fit in, doesn't fake interests, and doesn't exaggerate stories. He lives from a place of authenticity, and that coherence can be felt. When a woman senses that a man truly is who he shows himself to be, she relaxes, and when she relaxes, she connects. At that point, attraction no longer depends on what you do, it depends on who you are. That's why the path to becoming irresistibly attractive isn't about memorizing lines, strategies, or techniques. It's about knowing yourself, respecting yourself, and protecting your energy. A man at peace with his mind and body doesn't need to persuade. His presence alone does that. That's the essence of the confidence that hypnotizes. It doesn't need noise because its silence carries weight. Before we continue, I want to invite you to take a brief pause. If this content is helping you see things more clearly, subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and leave your name and the country you're watching from in the comments. I love knowing where this community comes from, and I always read what you share. It really makes a difference and helps me keep creating this kind of content. And if you'd like, you can also share your personal experience or a piece of advice from your own story. Now let's get back to the topic and move on to one of the most powerful signs of unconscious attraction, the selective gaze. Selectiveness is one of the most attractive traits a man can have, yet few truly understand it. We live in a time where many believe that being available to everyone is a sign of confidence, when in reality, it's the opposite. A man who constantly seeks approval or attention projects neediness, not value. In contrast, The man who chooses calmly and with intention, who doesn't act from the impulse of validation, communicates something far more powerful. He shows that he knows what he wants and doesn't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. That attitude, without a single word, immediately sparks deep interest in women. When a man is selective, his entire energy shifts. It's not about acting cold or pretending to be indifferent. It's about having standards. Women can tell when a man doesn't give himself away to every passing stimulus. That restraint is perceived as self-mastery, as a kind of self-control that, on a psychological level, reads as strength. He's the kind of man who doesn't look at everyone, but when he does, his gaze has intent. He doesn't look to fill a void, but because he genuinely feels curious about that specific person. That difference creates tension, desire, and respect all at once. In the previous points, we learned that confidence creates magnetism, and invisible language sustains attraction. But selectiveness gives that energy direction. Being selective isn't about rejecting, it's about discerning. It's not about wanting every woman to validate you, but about deciding who truly earns your attention. When you do that, your energy stops scattering and becomes more powerful. She feels it, because suddenly she's not with a man trying to impress her, but with one who could choose not to. And that silent power is irresistible. Selectiveness also shows emotional maturity. It reveals that you're not driven by urgency or loneliness, but that you can enjoy the process without desperation. It sets you apart from men who mistake persistence for interest. A woman can feel when a man acts from abundance and when he acts from need. The first feels free, the second feels trapped. The first chooses, the second begs. And in the game of attraction, that difference changes everything. Moreover, selectiveness communicates value because it implies boundaries. A man who knows how to say no, who doesn't give himself to just any energy, who doesn't try to please at all costs, becomes an emotionally stimulating challenge. Not because he's playing hard to get, but because he radiates self-respect. That self-respect invites her to respect him too, and that's exactly where mature, balanced attraction begins. In practice, the selective gaze applies not just to romantic desire, but to life itself. It's how you choose your battles, your conversations, your environments. A man who exposes himself only to what uplifts him and not to what drains him projects leadership without having to say a word. Women can sense that internal filter, that clarity that comes from someone who doesn't need noise or drama to feel alive. The selective gaze also neutralizes the fear of rejection. When you understand that not every woman will choose you, and that you don't need them to, you become free. And from that freedom, paradoxically, you become more attractive. You stop trying to fit in and simply show up as you are. Feminine attraction responds to that piece. Because a woman may feel flattered by a man who chooses her, but she feels deeply drawn to one who doesn't need to. In essence, selectiveness is the highest expression of masculine self-esteem. It's the balance between desire and discernment. It's not about having many options, it's about having clarity. And when that clarity shows, your presence gains weight, your energy becomes rarer and more valuable. That's when a woman not only sees you differently, but also feels that you can't easily be replaced. That is the true difference between seeking approval and projecting power. Now let's look at a key element that complements this energy and awakens an unconscious fascination in women, the mystery that stirs desire. Mystery isn't a game or a strategy, it's the natural consequence of a man who doesn't give himself away too quickly. When a woman senses that she can't fully read him, that there's something in his eyes or in the way he responds that she can't quite decode, her mind activates. It's not about manipulating her or creating uncertainty, but about preserving your individuality. A mysterious man isn't someone who hides things, he's someone who doesn't empty himself out. He maintains an inner space that belongs only to him, and that's what makes him magnetic. Mystery is attractive because it conveys depth, and depth, because it implies emotion, history, and self-control, awakens curiosity. A man who reveals everything about himself in the first few minutes often loses his charm, not because he's being honest, but because he leaves nothing to discover. Attraction is a journey, and the feminine mind enjoys emotional exploration. When everything is laid out from the start, the tension fades. Mystery, on the other hand, keeps attention alive. It allows her to imagine, to build versions of you, to want to know more. And that doesn't come from hiding information, but from pacing your presence. Show what's necessary, say what's essential, and respond calmly. Every pause, every glance, every silence creates an emotional space where imagination works in your favor. We've already learned that selectiveness gives you value and confidence makes you magnetic, but mystery keeps intrigue alive. Women feel attracted to men they can't predict, not because they're unattainable, but because such men don't follow scripts. They speak when they want to speak, stay silent when they feel it's right, and don't rush to fill the quiet with meaningless words. Their behavior is consistent but not predictable. And that unpredictability sparks desire because it creates emotional tension, an uncertain connection that stimulates. Mystery also shows in how a man expresses himself emotionally. He doesn't reveal his entire inner world right away, but he's not closed off either. He allows himself to be known layer by layer. His vulnerability appears when it's genuine, not as a tactic to get a reaction. That mix of strength and sensitivity creates irresistible tension. A woman feels she's in front of someone with history, with experiences, with thoughts and emotions not everyone has access to. That sense of emotional exclusivity is profoundly attractive. In real life, mystery isn't about pretending to be interesting, it's about having an interesting life. If your life is filled with goals, passions, projects, and meaningful silences, you won't need to fake anything. She'll feel that there's a universe within you that can't be exhausted in one conversation. That's why men with purpose and discipline project greater attraction. They don't depend on external attention because their inner world is already rich enough. Mystery also preserves polarity. When a man makes himself too available or tries too hard to please, tension fades. But when he maintains his rhythm, his autonomy, and his essence, a woman feels that his interest doesn't control him. That makes him intriguing and desirable. Attraction feeds on what can't be fully possessed, on that part of you that remains yours, even as you draw closer. Remember, mystery isn't something you force, it's something you cultivate. It's the result of inner depth, of being able to be alone without feeling empty, of enjoying silence without needing to fill it. When a man achieves that, his presence becomes captivating because it radiates emotional independence. And independence is pure desire. The man who needs nothing is the one who offers everything without realizing it. That combination of serenity, mystery, and presence creates a lasting magnetism. It's the kind of energy women don't forget because they can't define it. They don't know if it's your voice, your calmness, or your gaze that draws them in. They only know that something about you unsettles them, and that very feeling keeps them thinking about you even when you're no longer there. Now that we've understood the power of mystery, let's move on to a quality that both complements and humanizes that energy, the effortless humor that wins hearts. Genuine humor is one of the most powerful forms of attraction because it breaks down defenses and creates instant connection. But it's not about being funny to impress, it's about enjoying yourself. When a man laughs sincerely, when he can laugh at himself without losing composure, he radiates a natural confidence that's disarming. Humor attracts because it communicates emotional intelligence. It shows that you can handle tension, that you don't take everything too seriously, that you can stay calm even in uncomfortable moments. And for a woman, that's deeply attractive. Humor isn't just a way to make someone laugh, it's a way to show how you see the world. Men who connect through humor convey lightness, but also security. Women sense that behind that smile, there's a mind that understands nuance, that knows when to use silence and when to lighten the mood. In moments where others grow tense or freeze, the man with humor flows, and that flow is pure seduction because it signals emotional mastery. In the previous points, we saw how confidence, selectiveness, and mystery create attraction. Humor, on the other hand, creates connection. Without emotional connection, attraction can't last. Humor is the bridge between tension and comfort. When you make a woman laugh with you, not at you, you create instant micro-trust. Her mind interprets it as, I can relax around him, and when a woman relaxes, desire begins to flow. Laughter breaks rigidity and opens the door to closeness. But there's a difference between attractive humor and insecure humor. The first comes from authenticity, from enjoying the moment without needing approval. The second seeks validation. A man who constantly cracks jokes to fill silence or to be liked radiates anxiety. But a man who knows when to use humor and when to stay quiet shows balance. The woman doesn't just laugh, she feels she's with someone who understands timing, who can read the room. That kind of social intelligence is far more seductive than any rehearsed line. Humor is also a form of well-calibrated sexual tension. A smile held with steady eye contact, a playful double entendre placed at the right moment, or a clever teasing comment that's cheeky without being crude. All of these can have a stronger impact than a direct compliment. The key is calibration. Humor shouldn't feel forced or aggressive, but flow from genuine connection. That sense of complicity creates emotional intimacy that draws her in, without ever touching her. In addition, humor shows frame control. When you can stay relaxed in a tense moment and use humor to ease the atmosphere, you demonstrate mastery, not over her, but over yourself. A woman interprets that as maturity, as strength, and that stirs respect. A man who can turn an awkward situation into shared laughter has something most don't: authentic charisma. Finally, humor reveals that you're not living from scarcity, that you can enjoy without expecting anything in return, that you know how to have fun simply because life is worth enjoying. That relaxed attitude is contagious, and women feel it as emotional safety. They want to be near someone who doesn't dramatize everything, who doesn't turn every interaction into a test. Natural humor says, I'm good, and you can be good with me. And that's one of the most seductive messages a man can send without uttering a single word. When humor flows, everything flows. Attraction becomes lighter, deeper, and longer lasting, because the woman doesn't just feel attracted, she feels happy. And when you make a woman associate your presence with genuine well-being, there's no competition. With that in mind, let's move on to a quiet signal that sustains all this energy: calm leadership. True leadership isn't about commanding, it's about inspiring. Women aren't attracted to the man who imposes his will, but to the one who leads with calmness, clarity, and direction. Calm leadership isn't expressed through a loud voice or through giving orders, but through the ability to make decisions without hesitation, to solve problems without drama, and to create a sense of safety for those around him. That blend of serenity and strength triggers deep attraction because it communicates something fundamental. This man can hold his ground. Attractive leadership comes from self-control, not control over others, but mastery over oneself. A man with calm leadership doesn't lose his center when things change, doesn't crumble under discomfort, and doesn't need to prove he's right. His strength lies in his stability. When a woman senses that, her body reacts instinctively. She feels she's in front of someone who knows where he's going, who has direction. And direction, more than power itself, is what generates desire. A man with purpose and composure doesn't need to convince, his presence already inspires. So far, we've seen that humor shows balance, mystery awakens desire, and selectiveness conveys value. Calm leadership unites all of these and turns them into action. It's the ability to stay the course when others lose it. In practice, it means you know what you want and what you don't, that you can guide without forcing, protect without dominating, and care without controlling. A woman feels that energy and senses she's in the presence of someone who can lead a situation without losing his humanity. A man with calm leadership takes initiative without anxiety. On a date, he suggests things naturally. He doesn't wait for her to decide everything, but he doesn't ignore her either. He knows how to listen, but also how to lead. And that, emotionally speaking, creates a sense of containment. She feels she can relax for a moment because he's holding the frame. That feeling is incredibly powerful because it activates in her mind the perfect balance between attraction and trust. Calm leadership also shows in difficult moments. When something goes wrong, and instead of complaining or losing your cool, you breathe, assess, and act. That's what sets you apart. It shows that you don't rely on circumstances to stay centered. Women are deeply attracted to that ability to remain firm without becoming rigid. It's a sign of emotional maturity and practical intelligence. And though it may seem subtle, it's one of the most irresistible qualities a man can have. Another key trait of this kind of leadership is empathy. The calm leader doesn't seek to dominate or compete, but to understand. His composure comes from knowing that true strength doesn't need to shout. He can set boundaries with a gentle but firm tone. He can correct without belittling. And he can stay on course even when others lose control. That steady firmness earns respect, and respect fuels attraction. Finally, this kind of leadership isn't built in interactions. It's built in everyday life. It comes from how you relate to yourself, how you manage your time, how you keep your word, and how you honor your commitments. When you're consistent in those small things, the confidence you project in conversation isn't an act. It's real, and authenticity is always attractive. Calm leadership is, at its core, the most mature expression of masculinity. Presence without pressure, action without aggression, direction without rigidity. It's the kind of energy that makes a woman feel not just attracted, but at peace. Because a true leader doesn't need to shine, he simply makes others feel safe in his presence, and that sense of safety is pure desire. With that in mind, let's move to one of the most intense and misunderstood signs of masculine attraction: controlled sexual energy. The most powerful attraction doesn't come from overflowing desire, it comes from contained desire. Controlled sexual energy is one of the clearest signs of a truly attractive man because it combines two opposite forces: intensity and calm. It's not about repressing desire, but about channeling it. A man who manages his sexual energy without anxiety or guilt radiates magnetism because his presence vibrates with life and drive, yet remains composed. Women sense it immediately. He's not the one who tries to touch or hint, but the one who, with just a look, can create more tension than another could with an obvious gesture. Masculine desire, when integrated rather than unrestrained, becomes a silent current, something felt, not seen. A man might be talking about something ordinary, but if his sexual energy is calm yet awake, that duality creates an electric pull. The woman feels it, even if she doesn't analyze it. She senses vitality and centeredness at once, and that throws her off because she's not used to a man who desires without invading. That balance between strength and restraint triggers an instinctive response, curiosity mixed with attraction. In previous chapters, we saw how calm leadership conveys stability and mystery sustains desire. But this energy is the foundation that fuels both. A man can have all the previous qualities, but if his sexual energy is repressed or uncontrolled, his attractiveness loses balance. Self-control at this level isn't about coldness, it's about awareness. It's about knowing what you feel, enjoying it inwardly, and expressing it without urgency. A held gaze, a lowered tone of voice, a slow breath, these are expressions of mastery, and that calm intensity is what attracts most. Women don't desire a man who's constantly available for his own desire. They desire one who knows when and how to direct it. That ability to decide when to advance and when to wait creates an emotional tension that excites them. Controlling impulse doesn't extinguish the fire, it focuses it. And in feminine psychology, that focus translates as confidence and strength. The man who masters his desire shows that he can also master his emotions, his environment, and his decisions. Overflowing desire communicates need, calm desire communicates power. And the difference shows in small gestures. The man who doesn't rush, who can hold eye contact without flinching or crossing boundaries, who knows when to pause, who doesn't need to force connection. That kind of man doesn't chase attention. He attracts it naturally because his energy isn't leaking outward, but balanced within him. This energy also appears in the way he walks, speaks, and touches. A light touch at the right moment, closeness without intrusion, a pause before moving. Each of these communicates control. Tension builds when a woman feels something could happen, but doesn't yet. That "not yet" is the realm of pure attraction, because desire isn't fueled by haste, it's fueled by anticipation. Controlling sexual energy doesn't mean ignoring it. It means honoring it. It means recognizing it as a part of you that can inspire, move, and connect without losing respect or balance. When you reach that point, your presence becomes irresistible because it transmits confidence, desire, and peace at once. You become a man who doesn't fear his fire, but doesn't burn from it either. This signal marks the step toward a deeper understanding of attraction. It's not just about generating magnetism, but maintaining it over time. And for that, it's essential to know the keys that sustain attractiveness beyond looks, age, or circumstance. That's what we'll explore next, the 4 keys to being attractive at any age. Attraction doesn't have an expiration date. What changes with time isn't your ability to attract, it's how you express it. Many men think that age takes away their value, when in reality it gives them an enormous advantage: experience, composure, and authenticity. After a certain point, confidence no longer needs to be spoken, it's seen. That's why men who age with purpose and serenity are often more attractive than those who try to imitate youth. The key is to build a presence that communicates maturity, vitality, and balance. The first key is conscious presence. It's not about filling space with noise, but about radiating calm and focus. A woman feels drawn to a man who's truly there, who listens, who doesn't need to talk to prove his worth. That kind of presence doesn't come from ego, but from awareness. The more conscious you are of your surroundings and emotions, the more magnetic you become. Not because you demand respect, but because you inspire trust. The second key is authenticity. With age, attempts to pretend become obvious and tiresome. The attractive man doesn't disguise himself or copy others. He knows his strengths and accepts his limits. He doesn't try to be younger or stronger, but wiser and freer. That coherence creates a kind of beauty that doesn't fade, the beauty of character. Authenticity expresses an inner truth that transcends appearance. And when a woman senses that a man lives from his truth, she admires him, respects him, and desires him. The third key is emotional balance. Maturity becomes attractive when it turns into serenity. A man who no longer reacts impulsively, who can speak without raising his voice, and who remains calm in conflict, radiates stability. That serenity is a form of strength, a demonstration of inner control that women interpret as emotional safety. Not because they need to be protected, but because they enjoy the company of someone who brings order instead of chaos. The fourth key is purpose. A man with purpose never stops being attractive, regardless of age. His eyes have direction, his actions have meaning, and his energy has focus. Women are drawn to men who live with passion and clear goals because purpose keeps the inner spark alive. It's not about material success, but about having a personal mission that keeps you moving forward. A man without purpose dims, and with him, his magnetism. A man with purpose radiates life, and that's desirable at any age. In previous chapters, we saw how energy, calmness, and coherence create attraction. But these 4 keys sustain it over time. The man who embodies them doesn't need to chase, his mere presence invites. He's the kind of man who projects stability, direction, and warmth, the kind who can look a woman in the eyes and make her feel curiosity without saying a word. That kind of attraction doesn't fade, it matures. Aging doesn't mean losing magnetism, it means transforming it. Every experience lived, every mistake overcome, every emotional scar becomes part of your energy. When you learn to accept your story and walk with it without resentment, you become deeper. And depth is the highest form of masculine beauty. It isn't measured in wrinkles or years, but in the peace you project. Understanding these keys helps you see that age doesn't take away your attractiveness. It multiplies it as long as you keep your essence alive. Mature attraction doesn't seek to impress, it seeks to connect. It's less a fire and more a steady flame. And to keep that flame alive within a real bond, it's essential to understand the difference between attraction and trust. That's the foundation of every healthy relationship, and that's exactly where we're headed next. Attraction makes a woman come closer, trust makes her stay. Both are necessary and complementary, yet they rarely coexist if a man doesn't understand them. Many know how to spark desire, but few know how to sustain it, because they don't realize that attraction without trust fades quickly. A woman may feel captivated by your energy, your voice, or your presence, but if she doesn't sense emotional safety, her body tenses. When attraction and trust coexist, however, the bond becomes deep and stable. Not because the relationship is perfect, but because both can relax and be fully themselves. Attraction is emotion, trust is calm. The first ignites the fire, the second keeps it burning without letting it consume. Attraction is the impulse that sparks the initial connection, the unconscious language of desire. Trust, on the other hand, is the invisible structure that holds that desire once the emotion settles. That's why a truly attractive man doesn't aim only to be liked. He aims to create a sense of safety. And that safety isn't imposed with words, it's demonstrated through consistency. So far, we've understood how behavior, energy, and authenticity awaken desire. But trust is built through steadiness. Every gesture, every promise kept, every clear boundary strengthens the frame. A woman trusts when she feels she can open up without being judged, when she senses that a man won't use her vulnerability as leverage. That feeling of emotional safety can't be faked, it's felt. It's the steady tone of voice, the genuine attention, the grounded presence, the absence of neediness. When she notices that, her body relaxes and connection deepens. A common mistake is confusing trust with weakness. Showing calm, empathy, or vulnerability doesn't make you less masculine, it makes you more human. A man who knows when to be firm and when to be understanding demonstrates a strength that goes beyond appearances. That mix of steadiness and warmth is what keeps long-term interest alive. Because attraction alone can win a night, but trust wins time. Women remember the men who made them feel safe being themselves. That kind of memory doesn't fade. Trust is the ground where real desire grows, because the body only surrenders where the mind feels protected. When you understand this, you stop playing the seducer and become a complete man. You no longer chase the spark of one night, you build a lasting fire. The balance between attraction and trust turns a relationship into a space for mutual growth. It's not about keeping constant intensity, but about sustaining connection even when the initial spark softens. A long-term attractive man doesn't fight to hold attention, he keeps it because he inspires peace. His consistency becomes his most powerful form of seduction. And when you unite both forces, the energy that attracts and the stability that sustains, you become a man who inspires not just desire, but respect. A man who's unafraid of being both desired and trusted. A man who leaves a mark. Because attraction makes them look, trust makes them choose. Most men spend a good part of their lives trying to be seen, without realizing that true power lies in learning to see themselves. You're more attractive than you think, but for the world to notice it, you must first recognize it yourself. Attraction doesn't come from what you do. It comes from what you radiate once you stop trying. When your energy stops asking and starts offering, everything around you responds differently. Women feel it, people sense it, and everything shifts. Not because you've become someone new, but because you've finally stepped into who you've always been. Being an attractive man isn't an act of seduction, it's an act of awareness. It's understanding that your calm is worth more than your looks, that your authenticity is more seductive than any strategy, and that your presence carries weight when it's aligned with your values. That blend of confidence, purpose, and serenity is what creates respect, trust, and desire. You don't need to imitate anyone or force anything. It's enough to live from your center and protect your energy for what it is, a natural magnet that attracts what's in tune with you. Thank you for staying until the end. If this content made you reflect or helped you better understand your own attractiveness, I invite you to support this space. Subscribe, give it a like, and turn on the notification bell. You can also leave a comment with your name and your country. I love reading them and seeing where this community is growing from. Every message, every story you share reminds me why it's worth continuing to create this kind of content. Never forget this: attraction isn't manufactured, it's awakened. And the first step to awakening it is recognizing yourself as the valuable, conscious, and grounded man you already are. See you in the next video.